3 true horror stories you shouldn't listen to at night. Hello everyone, welcome back to Mr Twilight, where we explore true horror stories, chilling mysteries, and terrifying tales that might just make you turn on every light in your house. If you're a fan of spine-tingling stories, make sure to subscribe, drop a like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Today, I'm going to share 3 true horror stories told directly by the victims I've personally interviewed. These are real-life experiences so terrifying that you shouldn't listen to them at night, because they might leave you sleepless and afraid of the dark. Brace yourself. These stories will send chills down your spine. Let's dive in. Story 1. The Knocking from the Basement, as told by Sophie Bennett, New Orleans, 2020. This first story comes from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I have to warn you, if you're listening to this at night, check your basement door now. After interviewing Sophie Bennett, I haven't dared go near any locked door in my house since. I found Sophie through a post on X, formerly Twitter, where she briefly shared her terrifying experience in a rental house in New Orleans. After reaching out, she agreed to detail her story during a call that lasted over an hour, and what she described chilled me to the bone. In 2020, Sophie, then 27 years old, moved to New Orleans for a job at an event planning company. She found a one-story Creole-style house with exposed brick walls and stained glass windows located in the French Quarter. The rent was half the price of similar houses in the area, and the landlord, an elderly woman with a distant gaze, told her the house had been vacant for over a year because the previous tenant left suddenly. Sophie, enchanted by the house's vintage charm, signed the lease immediately. The first few days felt normal, Sophie said, though the house had a strange damp smell like long-standing water damage. I figured it was just New Orleans humidity, so I ignored it. But by the third night I heard knocking, not from outside, but from the basement. It sounded like someone tapping metal with a hammer, slow and rhythmic like a beat. I checked the basement door, but it was sealed with a rusty padlock. The landlord had told me it wasn't used due to flooding. The knocking returned every night at 2 a.m. Sometimes I even heard whispering. A woman's voice, faint and pleading. "Let me out." At first, Sophie tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just old pipes or her imagination. But one night, the knocking turned into pounding, like someone was trying to break through the door. I stood in front of the basement door and felt the floor shaking, like something heavy was moving beneath me. Suddenly, the door started rattling violently, and a hand, pale, with long black nails, slid out from the gap under the door and scratched at the wood. I screamed, ran upstairs, and locked myself in the bedroom. The next morning, Sophie found deep claw marks on the basement door, as if carved with a knife, and a puddle of thick, foul-smelling black liquid oozing from underneath. After that, the house turned into a nightmare. Sophie began seeing a womanly figure at night, wearing a torn dress, long hair covering her face, standing silently in the corner of her room. She had no eyes, just empty black sockets, but I could feel her watching me. Once, I woke up and saw her crawling across the ceiling, her head twisted backwards, whispering my name in a voice that scratched at my brain. Sophie eventually discovered a wooden box in the kitchen cupboard, containing handwritten notes. They described how the house was used for voodoo rituals in the 1800s. One note revealed that a young woman had been locked in the basement as part of a ritual and died of starvation. Locals believed her spirit was trapped there, trying to drag someone else down to take her place. Sophie called the police. When they arrived, the basement door was unlocked and led to an empty room. Its walls covered in voodoo symbols, scratched in dried blood. No sign of the ghostly woman. But as Sophie was moving out, she found a Polaroid photo on the kitchen counter. It showed her sleeping, with the shadowy woman standing beside her, holding a rotting rope. "I still hear the knocking in my dreams," Sophie said, trembling. "Sometimes I can feel cold breath on the back of my neck." I checked X and found posts from later tenants, saying they too heard the knocking and saw the woman crawling across the ceiling. One even claimed to have found a blood-stained rope in the basement. No one knew where it came from. "I don't know if that thing is a ghost or something worse," Sophie told me, "but that house is a place you should never go to, especially at night." A friend's. Sophie's story haunted me because of the thought something might be trapped in the basement, waiting for you to open the door. If you ever hear knocking at night, don't go down to the basement. What do you think about this story? Leave a comment and let me know. Story 2. The Figure in the Security Camera, as told by Ethan Carter, Seattle, 2021. Alright folks, the second story comes from Seattle, Washington. And if you think security cameras make you feel safer, this story will make you want to rip them all out. I interviewed Ethan Carter via Zoom, and to this day, he still can't look directly at a security feed again. Ethan, a 30-year-old software engineer, moved to Seattle in 2021 to work for a tech company. He rented a modern apartment in the Kill the Capital neighborhood through a real estate website for just $900 a month. Shockingly cheap for a fully furnished unit with integrated security camera system. The landlord, a man with a flat tone, told him the apartment had been vacant for a few months because the previous tenant moved for work. Impressed by the smart home features, Ethan signed the lease immediately. The apartment had 4 security cameras. Ethan explained, in the living room, kitchen, hallway, and at the front door. I could watch live feeds on my phone app, and at first, I thought it was an awesome feature. But by the second week, I noticed the hallway camera recorded a shadowy figure. Tall, thin, faceless, standing in the corner at 3 a.m. I checked, but the hallway was empty and the door was locked. I assumed it was a glitch, but the figure showed up every night, each time closer. Then things got worse. Ethan began receiving alerts from the camera app, even when he hadn't turned it on. One night, the app opened on its own, and I saw the figure standing in the living room, staring directly into the lens. It had no eyes, just deep black sockets, and its mouth twisted into a crooked smile, like it had been slashed open. I screamed and rushed to check, but no one was there. I then tried deleting the app, but it reinstalled itself. Soon, the camera began recording bizarre videos. The figure crawling across the floor, dragging what looked like a body bag, sometimes standing behind Ethan while he was asleep. He found an old USB drive tucked in a kitchen drawer, containing footage from the previous tenant's cameras. They recorded the same figure. In one clip, it crawled onto the tenant's bed, whispering something before the person screamed and the video cut out. That thing isn't just a ghost, it's a hunter. Ethan dug into the apartment's history and discovered that in 2018, it was the site of a missing persons case. A man living alone vanished without a trace, though blood was found in the hallway. Neighbors recalled hearing scratching and dragging sounds at night, like someone was being pulled away. Ethan brought in a tech expert to check the system. But the moment they touched the cameras, every screen in the apartment lit up, all showing the figure in the living room, with unnaturally long arms reaching toward Ethan. I watched it crawl out of the screen, its claws scraping the floor, and the smell of blood filled the room. Ethan said, his voice trembling, he moved out that very night. But the camera app still sends him alerts, even now, showing the figure standing outside his new apartment. I don't know what it is, Ethan said, but it knows where I am. I looked up the address on X, formerly Twitter, and found several posts from people who had toured the same apartment. One said the camera turned on its own to follow them. Another heard whispers from the camera speakers, even though the system was unplugged. That apartment isn't safe, Ethan warned, especially at night, of friends. Ethan's story shook me because the very thing meant to protect you, your cameras, might be watching on behalf of something else. If your camera turns on in the middle of the night, don't check the feed. What do you think about this story? Story 3, The Singing Under the Bed, as told by Maya Torres, Tucson, 2022. This final story comes from Tucson, Arizona, and it's the one that made me never sleep without checking under my bed again. I interviewed Maya Torres over the phone, and she was still crying as she recalled her terrifying experience. Maya, a 29-year-old painter, bought a small house in Tucson in 2022 so she could have space to create. The house had 2 bedrooms, a backyard with cactus plants, and was priced at just 55% of the market value. The agent told her it had been vacant for over a year because the previous owner moved abroad. Maya, drawn by the area's peacefulness, purchased it right away. On the first night, I heard singing, a child's voice, softly humming a lullaby, but it was slow and sad, and it was coming from under the bed. I thought it was just the wind or maybe the neighbors. But when I bent down to look, there was nothing there, just darkness. The singing returned every night at 1 a.m. and sometimes I could hear the sound of fingernails scratching the wooden frame, like someone was trying to crawl out. Maya tried sleeping in the living room, but the singing followed her, now with faint giggling, as if something was enjoying her fear. Then she began seeing a child-like shadow, small, thin, with long hair covering its face, standing in the corner of her room at night. It didn't move, but I felt it watching me. One time, I woke up and saw it crawling under the bed. I saw glowing red eyes flashing in the dark, and it whispered, "Sleep with me." I screamed, turned on the lights, but it was gone. There was only a pool of fresh blood left under the bed. A mayor discovered an old wooden box hidden beneath the bedroom floor. Inside were children's drawings, depicting a child being buried beneath the house, alongside scrawled words, "I don't want to be alone." She dug into the house's history and found that in 1975, it had been the scene of a gruesome murder. A 7-year-old girl had been buried alive under the bedroom floor by her mentally ill mother. Her body was eventually found, but locals believed her spirit remained trapped, searching for someone to play with. Maya brought in a priest, but the moment he began praying, the bed started shaking violently, and fresh blood sprayed up from beneath the floorboards, filling the room with a putrid stench. I saw the child's figure crawl up the wall, its head twisted backward, mouth wide open to reveal razor-sharp teeth like it was about to devour me, Maya said. The most horrifying moment came one night while Maya was asleep. She felt tiny hands tightening around her throat. When she opened her eyes, the child was crawling out from under the bed, its face grotesquely twisted, red eyes burning, trying to pull her into a dark void under the floor. I saw dozens of shadowy figures down there, screaming, reaching for me. I fought back and ran out of the house, but I could feel its nails scratching my back, leaving burning welts. Maya left everything behind and moved out. But even now, she says she still hears that lullaby in her dreams. And sometimes her new bed shakes at night. I don't know if it followed me, but I can't bring myself to look under the bed anymore. Maya sobbed. I searched X and found several posts from people who had toured Maya's house. One said they heard singing from the bedroom. Another said they saw a child's shadow in the window. Even though the house had been empty for months, that house, Maya warned, is not a place anyone should visit, especially after dark. So there you have it. 3 chilling true horror stories, The Knocking from the Basement, with the eyeless woman in New Orleans, the predatory shadow in the security camera from Seattle, and the lullaby under the bed, whispered by a ghostly child in Tucson. The accounts of Sophie, Ethan, and Maya serve as grim reminders that sometimes the most familiar sounds, knocking, singing, or the click of a camera, can hide terrifying truths waiting to pull you into the dark. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment and share a creepy story you've heard or experienced. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so I'll have the motivation to bring you more horror content. Thanks for watching. And if you're listening to this at night, check your doors, your mirrors, and under your bed. Stay spooky, bye-bye.